Welcome to the All About You podcast. My name is Sheila and I am your host. In this podcast, I invite everyday people to tell their stories of their travels, passions, and what makes them happy. So if you have a story to tell, please contact me on allaboutyoupodcast@yahoo.com and let's tell your story. So now for today's conversation.
Welcome to another conversation on the All About You podcast. And I'm delighted today to have my guest Tom, who is a guitarist and a saxophone player. Welcome to the podcast, Tom.
Thank you, Sheila. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So let's go right back to the beginning. So when you were growing up, who were your music idols?
I suppose the person who I most admired was when I started off on the guitar when I was 11, and then as if I was playing Spanish classical music, I think, and then I met a school friend who played stuff like the Animals, House of the Rising Sun. Then I got into the Beatles. Then I got into a schoolboy rock band, and we did cover versions of the Stones, etc., etc. I must have been out 16 or 17, and my real hero was Jimi Hendrix, actually.
Wow. So at such a young age, you're doing all this rock stuff. I mean, that must have been brilliant.
We were pretty bad. We played in a few pubs. We used to rehearse in a youth club.
Really?
Yeah, our first gig, the first time I ever played live in front of people, the audience showed their disgust by throwing chairs at each other. And so they weren't very appreciative, so... That's when I realised that playing live is a whole different ball game. It's very different from rehearsing. Playing live is the acid test of playing music, really.
I mean, I guess it's one of those things, you can do all the theory, all the practice, but when you actually get out there in front of people, the general public and audience, that's when you really start
You have
learning.
to do it a lot to get used to it. It's very easy to let nerves get the better of you, and you may not know a song very well if you're playing from by heart. If you don't know it that well, then you're not going to do it that well live. So.
Sounds like a good ground to cut your teeth as a musician.
Oh yes. I mean, I played live at parties or with friends, just a sing song. Having a sing song with friends. That's the nice thing about it.
So, Tom, what about your music classes at school? Did you like the classes? Were you encouraged by your music teacher?
I started off with a piano when I first started music. It was with a piano teacher. I had a very good Polish lady, and we had a book for teach piano to kids, and that was good. Then it got a bit more serious, and I did some exams, and that's when it got more academic and a bit dry. And I think I went off it then. I got to grade 3. I don't think I even passed the exam, and I lost interest because of the dryness of it. And in school, music was taught in a very boring mathematical way, so I never liked the way music was taught. When I was at school.
I must admit, my own experience of my music teacher in secondary school, Mr. Rudlin, and I remember that now. He was a great guy. He was absolutely amazing. He had wild hair.
Yeah.
And at our school, we did Joseph's Technicolor
Oh,
Dreamcoat.
yeah.
Oh, my God. And he just got everybody together. It doesn't matter whether you could sing or not. You're all going to be in the production. And he was fantastic. So, yeah. So not always a good experience with music classes at school.
Music can be very badly taught. The teacher it's all about pedagogy. The teacher has to use his or her imagination to get it across, particularly to kids. Otherwise, it's very dry.
Yeah, I think that with a lot of subjects as well. I mean, I think with art, we're often in our art classes. We are told you can't draw. You're not very good at using your hands at modelling clay and all this sort of thing. So often, maybe something that you're quite interested in, but maybe haven't got the skills, is killed stone cold dead at school.
Yes, by lack of motivation.
And the way it's often taught. It's a shame.
You're written off at an early age, often,
Yeah, that's such a shame. Okay, so let's move on then. So when did the saxophone start?
That started a bit later. I must have been in my 20s. I had always wanted to play another instrument, because I gave up really the piano. I haven't touched the piano for decades. The guitar was really what really put me into music, and I love playing guitar with people. And the sax, I've always liked the sax, and I had a friend who I met when I was in my 20s, and he loved jazz. He loved Charlie Parker. And we used to go to the pub, and then we'd come home and listen to jazz records. I got into jazz through that, and then he used to play the alto sax. And through him, he helped. I bought a second-hand sax, and I started learning. And little by little, I got into it. But it's one of those things that, you have to keep plugging away. And I think I let it... I'd have times when I played a lot, and then times when I didn't. And you can't do that with it. A MIDI instrument is like any learning, you have to be steady.
And I think it's that practice, isn't
Yeah.
it? All the daily practice, the
Yeah.
scales if you're doing a piano, and the practicing the chords and stuff. Yeah.
But what's very important is to be able to play with other people. That's where it makes more sense then. Learning by yourself is very hard, unless you have a goal. The goal is to play with other people in a big band. Like I play in 2 big bands. That means that I have to practice. I have to rehearse, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to play the songs. So it's a carrot and stick thing.
Yeah.
So
Because the saxophone to me doesn't look the easiest instrument to learn.
no, well, every instrument has its difficulties and its easy things. The saxophone, it's an instrument which involves your fingers, both of your hands. It involves your wind, your breath,
The breathing.
and it involves your mouth and your lips. So it's very complete. Like guitar is just 2 things. The guitar is your 2 hands, basically. The sax is the 2 hands plus the breathing plus the mouth. So it has that, and getting a good sound, getting a good, nice, rounded sound is a huge challenge. I'm still working on it, So a lot of saxophone, you have to do long notes.
Yeah,
It
so
sounds
to
like
hold the note.
you have to hold a note and play piano, and then crescendo and forte, etc. So it's a challenge, but it's very rewarding because it's you. It's your breath, basically. So every time, even if you're just playing scales, it's a kind of breathing exercise. It's something almost meditational in it.
Yeah, interesting. So, when was your first band playing as a saxophonist? How did that happen?
Well, when I came to Spain, it's really when I came to Spain all those years ago, I got into it. We put together a little soiree, and I had to play a few tunes on the saxophone in front of friends, basically. It was a kind of summer party. Also, at the same time, I joined a band in Valencia, which really is a great thing to do, because that's a good way to meet people. It was a band in a barrio called San Marcelino, and I went along to rehearsals. I was the only foreigner there, and we must have done a few what they call pasacalles. You walk down the street playing. I had to practice that in my flat, so you don't trip over. You have a little music stand or a little one of those music thing on your saxophone, so you can read the music.
The music as you're walking.
A lot of people just memorise it. It's paso dobles, which are lovely. So I don't know if that was before or after, but we played concerts with a band. So that must have been the first time I played live. Yeah. With a banda, you're okay because you're kind of camouflaged by other musicians. So
you've got other people around.
You can always do playback. If you don't know something, you just don't play. So
I think that's one of the things here in Valencia, isn't it? Every occasion, whether it's a communion, a wedding, a fiesta, every village has a band.
Yeah.
And particularly when we have the fire celebrations here,
Yeah.
every single band in Valencia is trooping up and down the street morning, noon and night.
I mean, Valencia is famous for exporting musicians.
Oh, really?
There are lots of musicians all over the world from Valencia, particularly wind instruments, saxophone, clarinet, oboe.
Really?
Because there are so many people who join bands, and they become, some of them, a small percentage, become very, very serious professional musicians. Valencia is renowned for the music, for musicians. Yeah,
absolutely. So you said you're in 2 big bands.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, I started off in a big band in Benimaclet in Valencia, and that was very low key. You didn't have to have any. There was no audition, basically. You could just turn up.
So as long as you've got an instrument,
as long as you've got
how
the instrument,
to use it.
as long as they just need warm bodies, basically. So I started off playing with them, and I already had a grounding in saxophone, and that must have been about 5 or 6 years ago. And then I got a bit more ambitious, and a friend said, well, why don't you come along and play with this big band? So I came along, and they accepted me. Then another person said, why don't you play with the other big band? So little by little, you get to know each other. You get to know, you spread your circle of acquaintances musically,
Because I can imagine, as you say, once somebody sees that you know your stuff, you know what you're doing, you're going to be in demand.
It's also a fact, if you're reliable, you turn up to rehearsals on time, and you learn the songs, then people think, oh, that's good. I mean, you could be a brilliant musician, but if you don't turn up for rehearsals, or you're flaky, then you get a bad reputation straight away. So it's being steady. You know, I'm not a great musician, but at least I turn up for rehearsals, everyone I can.
Yeah.
I
mean, it is a commitment, isn't it, being part of
it is,
the band?
yeah, because you're going to, the end result is a concert. So you have to go to the rehearsals, you have to commit to a certain date. On this date we're going to play live, you know. So I had a concert last weekend. I had 2 concerts.
When you're part of a big band like that, I mean, do you have a weekly rehearsal?
Yeah, weekly. Yes.
And I guess you have more rehearsals when you've got a concert or something.
No, I think it's just weekly because a lot of people, it's very difficult to get 20 people together.
Right.
Some are professionals, some are semi-pros, and often at the last minute a gig turns up and someone can't come along, you have to get somebody else quickly. So it's very difficult to get people, you know, particularly people, and people who have their jobs, or working people, you know, they're not luckily like me, they're not retired, so they have to come from work, so it's difficult to get people to commit, you know, to a certain day, a certain time.
And do you get nervous before a concert?
I have done, yes. If I'm playing a solo, with the first big band I played with, I didn't get too nervous because the level wasn't that high, so I thought, well, it doesn't matter. But with the 2 big bands I'm playing now, there are professional musicians there. So you're playing a solo, you think, my God, this guy's... There are a couple of professionals there who they can play really good solos.
So the pressure is on then?
A bit more pressure, but I mean, to a certain extent, because I mean, if you fluff a few things, it doesn't matter. It's not the end of the world, you know. So it's just your own self-esteem, and you know, and it doesn't look good for the band if you fluff something. Because I often look at it from the audience's point of view. Jazz is complex music, you know. I think what people most notice in a solo is if there's something, the rhythm is wrong. If someone kind of goes a bit out of kilter, rhythm-wise, okay? The notes are important as well. If something is blatantly wrong, then obviously people know. But a lot of people don't notice when you fluff something because they don't know anything about music itself. They know if it sounds more or less okay. That's one of the things about music, it's so abstract, particularly jazz, you know.
Yeah. There are a lot of really good musicians who cannot read music.
Most do, though. Most do, because it's like language. If you can read music, then you can communicate instantly with somebody else. Someone will say, look, I've got this song, here's the music. You can play it straight away. If you can't read music, you're going to have to get him to play or her to play the song or listen to the recording. I mean, that's good as well. It's good to have a very good musical memory. It's good to have both. A really good ear, good memory for music, to memorise tunes and lines and chord sequences, but also to read music, you have to, really.
Yeah.
If you want to get anywhere at all.
So let's talk about saxophones now. So there are several different types of saxophones. So if we imagine an orchestra or a band, there's going to be different sizes. Can you just talk us through some of the differences?
Well, there are 4 now. There used to be more. When the sax was invented in the 19th century by Adolphe de Sax, he was a Belgian. That's why it's called saxophone, it's his surname. I think he created quite a few models, different sizes to suit, because you know it's for military marching bands. You know, it's more powerful than the clarinet. The mouthpiece is called a woodwind because the mouthpiece is wooden. You use a wooden reed, and the mouthpiece, well, it's plastic actually, but it's counted as a woodwind, so it's in the same family as the clarinets and the oboes, even though the body is metallic. But nowadays, there are really just four types. The one I play in a big band is the one which has the lowest notes. You know, it's the bigger the tube, the lower the notes, basically. The deeper the sound can vibrate. Yeah, that's a sort of law of physics. And the smaller it is, the higher it can go, basically. So I played a baritone, which is the biggest one, the lowest one. Then you have the tenor sax, then you have the alto, then you have the soprano. The soprano's not used that much. That's the highest one. Kenny G plays a soprano, you know.
Right, yeah.
It's got a very, very, very lilting, very feminine sound. It's very hard to play, but to play in tune. But really, in a big band, you'll only have, let me just think, you'll have 2 altos, 2 tenors and 1 baritone. That's the normal lineup. Glenn Miller he used clarinets as well.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, he wanted a different sound. Because he was around in the heyday of the big bands.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he wanted to stand out. So he hit upon a different idea of having clarinets and with saxophone. 1 clarinet I think he had. And they always played very high up in the range, and lots of vibrato, to stand out a bit. But most big bands are 5 saxes, baritone, 2 tenors and 2 altos.
So when did you get your very first saxophone? Did you acquire it? Did someone lend it to you?
No, I bought a second-hand one.
You actually bought your first one, but it was second-hand.
Yeah, it was an East German one. It wasn't a great one, but it's, you know, you have to start somewhere. Nowadays you can get not a bad saxophone for €200 on a website.
Really?
Yeah, 250 I've seen. You can get, not bad, well they're made in China, but they're passable. The standard's got much better. In the old days you could get something really ropey, but nowadays the manufacturing process has been standardised and improved. But you can get a cheap sax, student sax for 250, and they're not bad.
Well, I'm surprised at that. I thought, we'd be talking at least double that amount.
Well, I mean, it won't be a great instrument, but you can get an okay sound out of it, and then if you want to move up and get a mid-range one, I mean, you can pay up to £10,000 for a really good alto sax, 10,000 for a baritone, 15,000, 20,000.
So when you're starting out, you can get one at a reasonable cost.
You can get a reasonable cost.
As you commit and get better over the years, then it's worth spending.
It's worth spending more, because the sound is better, the quality of the metal is better, the quality, because saxophone is a very complicated mechanism. You've got lots of keys, lots of pads, lots of rods, so it's easy for something to go wrong.
I actually know a little bit about this because my husband was given an old saxophone.
Oh, right.
And he took it apart.
Just to see if it could work.
Well, yeah, it's a bit like, let's take a motorbike apart and then we'll see if we can put it back together again. As you say, there was little bits and pieces and nuts and bolts and rods and keys all over the table. But he did actually get it back together. He did get it back together again. And he's actually sprayed it in black. That was a bit of a process.
Right.
And he's got it proudly hanging on the wall in his office. So, yeah, I have to say he did a brilliant job.
Yeah.
But as you say, when you see all these little bits and pieces all over the dining room table, don't touch anything. I know what this pile is and where this goes and all the rest of it.
Also, it has to be adjusted as well. He might have put it back. Has he played on it?
I'm not sure, actually.
Because he may find that it needs to be adjusted.
Right.
It's the opening that the actual keys, they have to be graded. If you open too much, then it's...
Right.
I don't. If it's closed, then it'll affect the tune.
I think this is actually just to go on the wall as sort of decoration, rather than he's got another one that he actually plays.
Right.
But, so, what about rehearsing? I mean, you're part of two big bands.
Yeah.
Do you have a rehearsal studio?
Yeah, we rehearse.
You do?
Yeah, we rehearse in the Godea one. We rehearse in the music school, and in the one in Quartier Poblet, we practice where the other band practices.
Okay.
So we have places to practice.
And what's the average age of people in your big band?
That's a good thing. It's a mixture of ages. I mean, the big band I played in on the Quartier Poblet, which is a village just outside Valencia. The guy next to me, Danny, must be about 20, and there's another young guy in his 20s. Then there's me. I'm the old fogey. A couple of guys, middle-aged guys. So it's a mixture of ages. Unfortunately, there aren't many women, there aren't many girls. In the big band in Godea, there's one woman. In the one in Quartier Poblet, there are no girls, which is a shame. I don't know why that is. It'd be nice. I prefer to have mixed groups, because I think all male is just
I mean, I guess traditionally, there were most sort of big orchestras and big bands were male, weren't they?
Yeah, they were.
Really?
They were. It's very uncommon for women to play in big bands.
But I'm sure I remember back in the day there was a woman, and it was an all-female big band.
There have been, but there are really very few.
Yes,
very few,
I have to say
exceptional, and they were kind of novelty item.
Absolutely.
Well, it should be. I think nowadays more and more there are women saxophonists, and really good ones, obviously. But it doesn't seem to have filtered through much to jazz, in Valencia yet,
I mean, it's nice to hear that younger people are getting into the big band sound.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool to hear. You said you had a couple of concerts last weekend.
Yeah.
What is the process? You've done your rehearsals. You've obviously got some kind of uniform. You all wear certain jackets. Or something?
I mean, for the one in Quartier Poblet, we got a T-shirt. It's called Luc, which is La Unión de Quart, something like that. It's got quite a nice logo on it. So it's black. Black is a rather common sort of colour. So black shoes, nice black shoes, black trousers, smart dress trousers, black T-shirt, and then a black jacket if you're cold. And the other one was the same, but this time with a black shirt.
Oh, right. Okay, so you've got your sort of uniform.
Everyone's black. With the first one I played in, with the other one, a bit more, a bit of a clet, they were a bit more imaginative. Everyone wore black, where you could wear a colourful tie.
Oh, right. Okay.
Colour,
and a bit of personality.
Exactly, yeah. So that's nice as well. But
so what's the future then? You're in your big bands. You've got your rehearsals. Is there anything on your radar you want to do?
Yeah, we started rehearsing. You mean personally?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm trying to branch out a bit. I've got a good friend of mine called Mike McCoy, and he plays live. He's an extremely good musician. Plays guitar, but he's got a lovely voice. He sings a bit like Nat King Cole. Very mellifluous. So he plays in a restaurant on Saturdays, and I used to play with him a long time ago, on the guitar and sax. So I'm going to get back together with him doing that. I'm going to play jazz standards, If I Had You, songs like that. I play on the sax. I can play the bass as well. A bit of everything. I'd like to do that again to get back into. As I say, it's the old characters. I'm one of these people who needs a characteristic. Basically.
Right. Okay.
So I need to be able to work towards something. So I've got to tell myself, right, I've got to learn 5 songs. I need to play them to be able to improvise over them.
Right.
With a certain amount of fluidity. It doesn't have to be Charlie Parker, but something nice, because it's a restaurant basically. So it's a bit like backing music, nothing too raucous, because people will be having their dinners. But it's something which is good, it's quality.
So what do you prefer? Do you prefer doing something small like that, or do you prefer to be?
I like both. I like both. Yeah.
So you like the difference between the two?
Yeah, it's nice. But that one is very intimate, and the other one is kind of in front of an audience on a stage. These 2 big bands, it's just a privilege to be there because you're listening to top-class musicians, good drummer, good bassist. It's like clockwork. And it's just a privilege to listen to people playing at the top of their art.
And for you to be part of
I'm there sitting as if I'm just listening to this wonderful music.
Yeah.
And then I can take part in it, and I might do a little solo here and there, but I mean nothing. I would never dare to do a long solo, I did a solo on Sunday. We had a concert. I had one solo, and it went okay. I was a bit nervous about it, but it was okay.
So what about your family? I mean, are they sort of, oh God, you're off again this Saturday night?
No, Marisa's very supportive. She comes along. I don't have that many concerts really, So
right.
And I have my sort of schedule of rehearsals during the week, so everyone meets.
So that's sort of your boys' night out, then a rehearsal.
Yeah, well,
a few
actually,
beers
it's just the music. We don't have beers after, no. It's quite prosaic. It's just rehearse and come home.
Oh, right. Okay.
I would like there to be a bit more kind of, but what's going on at the moment, we don't
absolutely.
do it. After last Saturday's concert, I think some of them went to have a meal. They were invited by the town hall, but as we wanted to play it safe, we didn't go. But in the normal state of affairs, we would go afterwards and have a meal, nice meal, and a few drinks. We have done that, but at the moment, no. But that's a nice thing about it, the social interaction as well.
So if somebody gave you, what would be your sort of ideal venue and situation to play? What would you pick as your, that's really going to float my boat?
Right. Well, as I say, I mean, the big band playing in a good venue with good amplification and good monitors, so everyone can hear each other. That makes a huge difference, Times I played without proper amplification and everything's very muddy. You can't hear the bass player, you can't very well, it's not good. Those the kind of gigs I played last weekend, those are my ideal places. I wouldn't like anything much too big, really. I get very nervous then, I think. But I think, maybe max 100 people there with a nice, good acoustics. That's fine with me.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to somebody, sort of a young person who maybe is thinking, I quite fancy picking up some kind of instrument.
Yeah.
What would be the best way? Do they go and talk to someone in a music shop? Do they talk to a couple of music teachers?
Well, if they know anyone who plays, it's a good thing if they have a friend or a friend of a friend who plays an instrument. I go along and talk to them and just say, look, just tell me a bit about if it's a guitar, can I have a go on it? Can you explain a little bit about it? If they have a kind of music they like, so a lot of people really love rock music. It's obviously guitar or drums, or bass, So it's just a question of going to what really interests you, not to do something out of commitment, out of a sense of obligation, because if it's going to be a hobby, then you might as well do something you really want to do. So what music do you really like? And in that music, what kind of instruments do you really like listening to? And then you can have a go at that.
There. So you play the saxophone?
Yeah.
And the guitar.
And the bass as well, electric bass.
So electric bass, wow. So, but in the big band, you're only playing the saxophone?
I play the baritone sax, yeah.
Right, you don't want to transition or do a bit of the bass guitar as well?
Well, I mean, as I say, with my friend Mike, we'll probably do a bit of bass in a restaurant. I can accompany him on the bass. I haven't told you, I also play in another rock band. I haven't in
a rock band as well? Oh, yeah, right, let's talk about the rock band
Yeah,
then.
it's got a weird name, it's called Dizzy Canvas. It's in a state of flux at the moment because the last times they rehearsed, I said I couldn't go along because I don't want to get COVID basically. They rehearsed in a studio with no ventilation. I said, and they're there, I said, look guys, for me it's not safe. I've got to go away next week, so I don't want to get COVID. So they've been rehearsing and I haven't. But I think they're okay about it, really. So we played a few gigs together. It's quite noisy. It's very noisy. basically.
Right. So whose music are you channeling?
It's their own music.
They're writing their own.
That's right. Yes, their own music. Yeah, we've done one cover, I think, of a David Bowie, Gene Genie. Normally it's their own stuff. So the guitarist, the two guitarists write it, or the singer. It's a good. We've played a few gigs. We played in Portland Bar in Valencia a few times.
In the city.
We get paid in beers, basically. So
yeah. Well, that's not too shabby.
That's not too bad. It's not a bad deal, really.
That's very rock and roll.
It's rock and roll. That's right. Yes. There are no groupies, obviously. No, and it's fun. It's fun, and that's loud. That is pretty loud.
So we've got the two big bands, and we've got the rock band as well.
Yes.
I mean, that's quite a lot going on.
There's quite a lot going on. Yeah. As I say, I haven't been rehearsing with these guys because of COVID. I think in the new year I will get back to it. Yeah.
So what is that like, though? It must be very different playing to 100 people you don't know, as opposed to maybe 20 people you do know.
Yeah,
there must be more pressure on the people you do know.
Well, it's a laugh, really, because I mean we're not pros. We just do it for a laugh,
Right. Okay.
And we have a joke, and the music, as I say, it's so loud I can feel my trouser leg trembling because I stand next to the bass.
You can feel the vibration.
Feel the vibration. It's there's a lot of power. You see why kids love, because you
all
do
the
that.
Energy in
You've got a lot of noise, volume coming out, so it's pure energy. So it's a different kind of music.
So before we finish, though, is there anything I should have asked you about being a musician, playing the saxophone, playing the guitar? Is there anything I should have asked you?
No, I think you've more or less covered everything. I think it's. I was going to say it's very rewarding, but it can be very frustrating as well, because you always want to get better. Making progress like anything. You always, how can I get better? How can I? It's a kind of niggling thing you have. But I think the important thing is just to enjoy the process as much as possible. Enjoy the process.
It's putting in the hours, but still enjoying it.
You have to enjoy it. The moment you start not enjoying it, that's when you have to think, I'm not doing this right.
Yeah, is this really what I want to do?
Some things you have to grit your teeth a little bit. I'm not enjoying this a lot, but I will in 5 minutes, kind of thing. Or if you think, I'm really not in the mood, do something else, put a song on, play a backing track, play a song. And then you get back into it.
Yeah.
Basically. You have to find ways of coercing yourself or encouraging, motivating yourself to do it. It's like anything. You like anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got to find ways of motivating yourself. As I say, the best way is to play with other people. That's the best way.
Yeah, definitely.
And I just say, music has brought me so much in my life. It's such a wonderful thing to be able to play music and meet people. I've met so many people through music. I've made lots of good friends. So it's a good thing to do, really.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a brilliant way to end the podcast. So, Tom, thank you so much for taking us on the journey of being a musician.
Right. Well,
and thanks very much.
Well, thank you. It's been very enjoyable. Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you. I hope you have enjoyed the conversation. Don't forget, if you have a story you would like to tell, please get in touch. My email address is allaboutyoupodcast@yahoo.com, and thank you for listening.